Good evening to the 16th April Planning Board meeting, the second one this month. We have a couple of items on the agenda tonight. We'll get going right after we take attendance. We're short one player. We do expect, but we'll be here momentarily if we're fortunate in that prediction. Other than that, Joe, Mike, George, myself, 4 out of 5, we have a quorum. So we'll get rolling with the minutes. Did those who are in attendance, did you have an opportunity to read the minutes that Tricia put out?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
That's all yes.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Unanimous. Approve them. Thank you, Tricia. That was a nice summary. A lot of work. The first item on the agenda is 250301. Application for 6 Edgewood Avenue. Eric Peterson is the agent, and I have this as a continued initial review. Let me start by apologizing to the applicant. There was a bit of confusion as to, first of all, me saying that the application was complete, even though we had a handful of questions that were left. There was nothing that you hadn't provided except the answers to several questions. So I had it in my notes as a continued initial review. And,
Okay.
I know we didn't overtly say there was a public meeting, but
I'll make sure I get a clarity on that next time.
hold us to that next time, and we'll try to police that ourselves. It's I'm new in the job.
What's that?
So I'm new in this job, so.
Oh, yeah?
You gotta watch me.
In that job.
And Nina would have never missed that, yeah. All right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me to go through the application again, or do you want to just go through the questions that were raised in?
I think just a brief summary for those who, let me just ask, is there anyone on Zoom this evening?
We have one attendee.
So for possibility that someone who hasn't seen it before, could you just give us a brief summary of what it is you're putting forward, no
Sure.
details, and
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
So this is an existing house at Goose Rocks on a very small lot that's non-conforming in pretty much every way, by non-conforming to setbacks. It's actually the building's off the property in one spot by 1.5 feet into the town right-of-way. There's an existing driveway, there's an existing propane tank, some little storage buildings, and a generator. And we are seeking to tear the existing house down and reconstruct a new house with the same square footprint, more centered on the lot, that is less non-conforming in that way as far as setbacks go. We are moving the driveway from one side of the house to the other with the same amount of square footage in a different configuration to allow us to get 2 parking spaces to try to meet the town's requirement for 2 off-street parking spaces for a single-family home. And we are getting rid of all the little extraneous storage buildings, but putting back the same generator. We're just going to reuse the generator that's there, and a propane tank. We're removing a fence that is across the property now that's kind of falling down. We're raising the house on a new flood-proof or flow-through foundation, a crawl space with flood vents. And we are taking advantage of some of the available 30% upward expansion for mostly for very little in area, mostly for volume, because the house right now has pretty low ceilings and we don't have any crawl space to put the mechanical equipment in, so we are using the attic for mechanical. We're creating an attic for mechanical space, not for living space. So we're falling under the height restriction, we're falling under the 30% expansion restriction, we're falling way under the 30% area expansion allowance. And we're raising the building to meet the flood, the FEMA flood, 2 feet above the FEMA BFE requirement.
Thank you.
In a nutshell.
So we had a series of questions. I understand that, I know the town has sent us the code office has sent the planning board an updated version of its memo, and
Yep.
if you could take
run
us through
through
what you
those?
know with that, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just hit the ones that seem to have an outstanding comment next to them. Let's see.
Item 4,
Is there an open item on 4?
the plan of the area showing lot
We're-
line
I,
division.
I'm good on item 4. Got an updated, sorry, I meant to
There's an
update
update
the
to the
memo.
update?
Yep, so I put the survey on the updated survey on the SharePoint, but we're good on item 4.
This is a
From the
closed.
town's perspective, yep, all
Yep.
that information
No,
has
that's,
been
that's,
provided.
that's all I'm after. I mean, it's like, we've gone on the record of saying there's an outstanding issue. I want to close it,
Yep,
you know, in the process of here, so we're good.
So then I guess the next one would be item number 5D, which,
Yeah.
we did adjust the steps on the house so that we had to add steps. We talked about that.
Because of the height.
Right, so, but we can't increase the footprint until June, so, because of steps, you know how that is.
We do.
Yeah, so for the purposes of meeting the restrictions that, or the guidelines that apply today,
Yeah.
I backed off some steps and we'll make it up in grading, you know, just landscaping and grading. So we do match the existing footprint of development as far as the house goes, and then there's an additional, I think it's 42 square feet, 43.4 square feet of extraneous stuff on the lot now. There was a propane tank, a generator, a storage thing, a storage thing, a storage thing. We're taking the square footage of all those extraneous things and reallocating it as a generator and a propane tank.
So this got flagged because there was a discrepancy in two numbers, 794 versus 759. That's how I'm trying to simplify the language.
Yeah, I don't actually understand that, so I'll let Nadia
Okay.
speak to that.
so I did some staff measurements, and I apologize, they could be off a little bit, but
Yeah.
I just noticed there was some discrepancy between the, like the lot coverage measurements. I was curious if I think the measurements on the plan, that 792 doesn't include the generator and the propane tank, I don't believe, because those are listed separately.
That's right, it's 2 buckets. Think of 2
Yep.
buckets of square footage here. One is that building, the structure of the house.
So-
The house, steps, porch, overhangs, bucket
Yep.
A. Sheds, generator, propane tank, bucket B.
So-
Bucket A remains the same before and after. Bucket-
792.8.
Yep, bucket B remains the same afterward, in the sense that I have 43 point something square feet to work with for my generator and my propane tank. It may not even take all that, but
All right.
So I understood the breakdown. I just wanted to confirm that the original number, that 792.8 originally,
Yeah.
Doesn't include the propane and the generator
that's correct.
tanks.
That's how it's stated on the survey and my site plan.
Okay,
In
so
the same
just
way
wanted
both
to
times, yes.
confirm those issues. So as long as the structure footprint is exactly the same on both sides, then I feel good about that.
And just give me the number again for what you're taking down, 43, something like that?
792.8,
Got that?
43.4
And you're saying that that's for the generator and the
propane,
and the propane tank, and you will not use more than that?
correct.
Okay, thank you. So that item's closed, as far as I can see. You okay with that?
Yep,
Yeah.
good with that.
Okay.
Let's see, I think the next thing is item number 9. Talks about, our intent is to start this project at the end of the summer or Labor Day-ish, and then work through the winter. But having said that, I don't want to have any sort of stipulation as far as when I can and cannot access this property and build, because I cannot live with that. So our intent is to build off-season, but I do not want to be restricted to having to build off-season, because that's just not a fair restriction.
Nadia, could you speak to that?
That's the planning board's decision, ultimately. We've,
Why are you recommending adding this as a condition of
So,
approval?
I-
Why is
I've-
it
Yep,
the
so
staff?
I've heard from a couple of abutters, and obviously we haven't done the public hearing yet, so they'll come in. But we've heard some concerns about blocking the road. It is a very tight area, and there's not a whole lot of space on the property,
I
like
can
in,
solve that with
terms
one
of-
statement. On our construction drawings, we have a standard boilerplate note under the specifications on every drawing that no vehicles associated with construction can be left in the town right-of-way or on anyone else's property, so,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
But that,
With that stipulation, you okay with
I-
us not adding that as a condition?
Do you have?
I do think you need to be concerned or aware that the neighbors down there, I'm not saying there has to be conditioned, but doing this in August is not gonna work. If it's gonna involve blocking that street, or there's gonna be construction vehicles all over those streets, it's the height of the summer down at the beach,
yeah, like I said, our intent is not to do it during the height of the summer, but it's a free country, so you can build a house,
the
there's.
town can also say that you can't dig up a street or block a street too, correct?
Oh, correct, yeah, that's
Right,
true, yeah.
so
Our
I'm
intent
just
is not-
making you aware.
We will not be digging up a street, because we're using existing sewer and water and electrical connections. So there's no street digging up in the offing here. And our specs talk about not blocking or parking in public way, public ways. Yeah, that's true with every town, all of our work essentially is in beach communities, and parking's always an issue, so it's in our specs that you can't park in the street, it just doesn't work.
You've been before the board before, I think
Yeah.
with more than one home in the Goose Rocks area, and
More
they're
than
very
one.
busy. I just, no, it just might help if you'd say something to that about how that's gone in the past.
You know what happens oftentimes? So if there is a project in the height of the season, what the contractors generally do is have the guys meet at, I don't know, say it's John Trudeau building it, right? He'll have his guys meet at his house in the morning, and they'll take like 2 trucks over. They'll pack the guys into 2 trucks, take 2 trucks to the job site, so everybody doesn't drive their own vehicle there.
Yeah,
So there are ways around it. You have to get creative, because, like, if you're on Kings Highway, for instance, and if it's in the summer,
yeah.
there's no, these guys are not gonna pay $250 a piece for a parking sticker. I do, but they don't, so the parking
It
has to be
doesn't
on site.
guarantee you a parking space either,
No, it
as
doesn't.
you well know.
It guarantees you the ability to park legally on the street, but the fact is, they're just used to containing the situation on the parcels, on the subject parcel.
Joe, Mike, George, any comment on this?
I'm curious whether it's just a parking and street issue, or just sort of the idea of a nuisance type issue with demolition. I certainly wouldn't want to be having my summer vacation and then the house next to me is being demolished. That, I think, could be a little bit of a problem maybe especially for a seasonal, especially Goose Rocks Beach, it seems predominantly seasonal use. So I think, a wise choice would be to work that out.
It's worked out I've been doing business in Goose Rocks Beach for 32 years.
Yeah,
and
no,
I get it,
I got it.
Nobody wants to live next to a construction site.
They
I have
don't.
on several occasions, but
Yeah, it's funny how the
People
people that have already built their house don't wanna live next to a construction site, funny how that
people,
works.
people, have a piece of property, they want to build something on it. I don't know that there's anything in the town ordinances that says you can't build a house on a particular month.
And if it's, true best attempt to not block and, be aware of the neighbors and their feelings, that's all you can do.
True.
If they-
Yeah, I don't mean to be discourteous to the neighbors by any stretch,
Yeah,
but I also wanna
Well,
protect
that's your
my,
future customers as well.
for sure.
And we have a public hearing on this, so if neighbors have a particular objection or concern, they can voice it.
Fair,
And we will take that under consideration.
yeah.
I would say as long as the road isn't blocked, which it seems like you are perfectly capable of not blocking the road,
Right.
construction noise is allowed. It's, as long as they're within those, as long as they're within the time frame that it's allowed, then there's not a whole lot that we can say, no, you can't construct during the summer, so.
There are restrictions if you have like a front dune project. DEP permit can restrict you based on the plover nesting season.
Yes.
So we do have projects out there that have been restricted from June to October. This is not one of them. So this has been approved. We'll get to that, but we've submitted our permit by rule for this, and it has been approved, and there was no stipulation as far as a moratorium on building during any nesting season or anything.
You're down the beach a bit from where the plovers,
Yeah, this is,
Have-
well,
have
this
been
is
blocked off.
inboard.
I know that, but
Yeah.
even to that, it's to the,
Protection zone or anything.
No, it's not in shoreline
Yeah.
zone, no. It's on the Pacific side of Kings Highway, yeah.
Pacific side, let's hope it doesn't get to the west.
Well, there's those that live on the Atlantic side of Kings Highway, and then the rest of them live on the Pacific side of Kings Highway, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Vernacular.
So are we of the opinion that we have an agreement that we can certainly record in the findings that no vehicles will be parked in the town right away?
That lines up with our
And
specification
the site is not
statement.
going to require any digging of existing infrastructure for connection to the existing infrastructure.
Digging of the streets.
Well, I mean, I can't promise that, because who knows if the line to the house is perfect? I don't know that. But I can tell you is that there's not a new sewer connection, there's not a new water connection, or a new electrical connection. Those three things already exist. So theoretically, we are disconnecting and reconnecting when the time comes. But I can't tell you
No,
with
I-
any
no,
certainty
no, I understand.
that there may be some maintenance or replacement that has to be, who knows if the sewer department comes by?
It was mentioned to me that Edgewood in particular has been recently paved. Is that,
Oh, good question. I
Your
don't know.
understanding?
So Edgewood was recently paved last year.
Okay,
The town has a 5-year moratorium.
they do, yeah, that's
So
right.
my suggestion is you should have a conversation with Eric LaBelle,
Yeah, I know, Eric.
Public Works.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that what might happen, you know, what you can and can't do, given that that has recently been paved. And, you know, whose responsibility it will be, which will be the applicant's
Right.
responsibility, to fix any disturbances on that street after it's been paved.
if there was a way to test
My suggestion is you have a conversation with him
Yeah.
before the public hearing.
Yeah, fair.
if it is a potential even, maybe there's a way to test the existing fittings in advance of the summer months. Just a thought. No condition, not been recorded.
Thank you. And the back street is dirt,
It's
Yeah.
dirt.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet that's not where your tie-in is though.
Good question. I don't know, I don't
Yeah.
actually know where
Okay.
the sewer line comes in on that property.
That would be too easy.
Too easy, yeah.
Should happen.
Let's
Can we
see.
move on to 11?
We kind of just covered 11.
Yeah,
Okay, so
So that's-
none of the condition,
Yep.
information is provided. It sounds like it has been provided verbally, no?
Yeah, so we still don't know where the sewer line is, and my understanding is you're not aware of where it is, but I think if you have a conversation with Eric before the public hearing, just to confirm that, like David said, like, just to confirm that you won't have to tear up anything to get to it.
Or if you do, what you.
I can't say that with any certainty because I don't have extra
Right,
vision.
so you just
but-
want to know what you might be responsible
Yeah.
for if you have to.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Our
yeah.
intent is not to be disruptive in that way, and
Mhm.
Sure.
because the road's been paved, there is a 5-year, any road that, in town that's been paved has like a
Yeah.
5-year no,
So-
go on it, so.
So I think it'd be good for us to know, so if you can chat with Eric and just kind of give us you can send me an email or something, just kind of confirming where the sewer line is, like which road it comes off of. I think that would be helpful for the board to know.
Yeah, sure. And I'll tell you what he tells me, which is probably, we'll see what we see when we see it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
But at least everybody's on the same page
Yeah,
at
that's
that
fair.
point.
Okay.
That would be
Yep.
helpful. Thank you.
It goes to the neighbor's house.
what's
Oh.
that?
It goes to the neighbor's house.
What, the sewage?
The sewer,
Oh.
I don't think so.
the power line.
Oh.
All right, let's-
13's the next one I got here.
So that's just another recommended condition. I think it's pretty standard. I've seen it on several findings of fact for site plans like this, just that buildings constructed comply with chapter 245.
So are you looking for I can't ever remember putting a condition in. I've certainly, we've noted that the lighting is fine, it's gonna be compliant with 245 as one of the,
I think it's kind of a
Statements.
blanket in there. There's usually a condition that says it conforms with like all the town ordinances or something like that. So it's kind of blanketed in there, but we just wanted to, capture it in writing that was,
but the condition that says, that's recommended here, you're looking for something that says that the code enforcement officer verifies that the exterior lighting complies with chapter 245.
yep. I think a specific, we wanted to note it because we noticed on the plans there wasn't a lighting plan. But I think we would feel
What says-
comfortable
it
if
says-
the,
It has been, though. The cover letter has been updated to state.
sure, but the plan, so the code enforcement officer couldn't look at it and confirm on the plan. So I think we,
Right.
in the office, would feel comfortable if the standard condition, which is that the application will comply with the codes of the town, so the wording is something like that, but it's pretty boilerplate.
That's a statement that we make in the findings of fact.
Yes.
It's not a condition at the end that we'll
Well,
read.
it is usually a condition. It's in the conditions of approval.
If we
section.
say what we normally say, which is it will meet all of the town ordinances.
Which 245 is one of
It's
them.
245 is one of them,
You
so-
picked one of them, but we're gonna meet 29 other town ordinances.
Well, that's
as
my
well.
point, and I'm wondering, are we gonna start calling them out individually? And I think 245, this is suggesting that we should, and it would be helpful. And we haven't done that in the past.
So I guess this is a good discussion for the board to have, if if you'd like to confirm it as a specific condition moving forward as well, we can. We noted it here. I think usually when we receive a site plan for when there's a new build, we see on the plans that are submitted, the lighting situation. And so
Right.
this was a more
You will
unique
when you get-
situation where
When you get construction
Yes,
drawings with an electrical plan.
the code enforcement
You will
officer
see
will
that.
receive the lighting plan, but
Correct.
we usually receive it at the planning board stage, and so this is a different situation than we oftentimes see, which is why you're seeing a special note.
There's been no issue raised by a member of the public either, an adjoiner.
Not that I have
No,
heard.
there would be if they had flood lamps in there
Yeah,
and
I mean,
everything,
I'm not
but
suggesting this is gonna be lit up like a prison yard. I mean, it's standard residential lighting, really. That's our
no,
intent.
you've answered it verbally, and I'm reading that it's in the cover letter. So I'm convinced that you're gonna do what you would normally do, which is treat this as a residence and give it residential lighting that's conforming with the town ordinance.
Agreed. I think the way, instead of cherry picking a section here and there, in my humble
Yeah.
opinion, I'd say it might be reasonable to suggest that the planning board for any project would have an overarching condition that says that you meet all the town
We do.
zoning ordinances, and that covers all of that.
We do. I want, because this was been highlighted
Yeah.
in a memo to us, I want to make sure that, I'm hearing the town is okay with that. Can we use our standard first, I think it's the first condition that we almost always put in, is that we'll conform with all town ordinances.
Sort of, it covers it
If
by
you're
nature.
okay with
right?
that,
I think
Okay.
that's fine.
the standard one will do. Thank you. And that's going to come up, I think, several times, maybe.
And a couple of these conditions, I mean, are conditions that are usually put in anyway, so, we put it, the staff uses this memo too, so when we are referring back to an application, it's
guys-
helpful to be able to
You
see
put an
kind of what we
enormous
were,
amount of work
what we
into
were
this.
thinking, so,
And
but I appreciate your thoroughness, but yeah, I feel happy with
It's
with
just
that.
that it's new, and,
Yeah,
and
No,
we're kind of new
it's
still.
growing pains, we're all
Yeah.
working on it together.
Try to avoid the pain and just grow together, I think is,
Same
What's
with
happening?
14 then? Or is that a specific?
no, that is that is, I'm reading as a suggestion that we say there's a submission waiver. No, we don't need you to tell us the location, dimensions, and details of signs because there's no signage, not required for this property. And
I
and
feel
I
like
think we
that's
should
a-
record that in the findings. That's what we've been doing more recently.
That seems like a commercial project kind of thing. rather than
Yeah,
residential.
I think there's a number of them like that, but we'll put that in the findings, that maybe there's other submission waivers that we granted, I don't recall.
And then the next one, number 16, I wrote this memo on 4/9, and when I checked, the DEP permit hadn't been approved. It sounds like you've received approval at this point, so.
Yes, ma'am.
but-
So you can go on the DEP.
That's
their
where I
new-
checked.
Their new awesome MEL system, and check out, there's a dot on the MEL system for every, have you been on that?
Yeah, and so I checked on your application, like I said, on 4/9, and it hadn't
Yeah.
been, but I believe that it has been now.
It has been now.
Um,
You check, you click on the dot that represents that spot on their MEL's map, and it tells you that it's been approved.
Yep. So, and that's also boilerplate language that we've always put on the conditions, so I don't have a concern that that one will be missed.
Well, the MDEP, we usually do capture as one of the findings that this permit was applied for and granted.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do something to that effect.
That is true in this case.
Yes, no, I got it,
Yep.
yeah. So, 219-2,
So then we come into the floodplain
yep.
area, And I think, so when Galen and I talked this over, we heard from the board at the last meeting that you're not all completely comfortable with administering floodplain language, so we figured that it would just be easy to put a specific requirement, since this is in the floodplain, a specific note in the conditions that the project has to comply with Chapter 219, our floodplain management ordinance. And I would put this one separate from the other one,
Yes.
just so it's specified.
And I think here then we'll say it will be confirmed, it needs to be confirmed. And when do they do that? Prior to the issuing of
The-
occupancy or?
The building
The,
permit.
yeah, the building
Right,
permit.
the
The code
building
enforcement
permit.
officer will look at the application and decide if it conforms
At the
with our
application, he
floodplain.
doesn't have to inspect,
Prior to granting the building permit.
Yes.
that's what I'm looking for, yeah. To show you the extent of my knowledge.
No, that's
He
fair.
doesn't have to look at the as-built and say, yeah, okay.
It's part of the submission package when you
Yep.
go for your building permit.
Excellent. Residential, 219-6, and this sounds like it might be something that, this is separate from the permit. You'll see that a flood hazard development permit, he's gonna issue a flood hazard development permit from the CEO, but also this second residential one. Recommend a condition before the CEO issues building permits to confirm compliance with what?
Foundation.
So this is the compliance with the foundation requirements in Chapter 219. So
Yeah.
those are the types of foundations that are allowed in the floodplain. I would say that that would be captured within the total compliance with Chapter 219 condition. So we put condition recommended for all of these individually,
Got
but
it.
I would say that it would be captured in total in compliance with Chapter 219.
One condition that says, prior to issuing of the building permit, the code enforcement office will confirm that the plans are in conformance with
Exactly.
219. One condition. No, you're saying, you give me that look,
No.
please.
You can certainly decide to put
No,
separate ones
It
if
just
you'd
comes
like.
to a point where, do you have a sort of universal compliance with all applicable laws, rules, and
Yeah.
regulations?
That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, and that covers you versus, once you call out separately, if you have the general clause, and then you call out, well, and it's gonna be in compliant with the lighting provision and the foundation provision, and then it begins to erode, what's your general clause for then, right? If you're calling out to subparts, that's sort of the question I guess I have for Nadia.
I don't disagree, and I'm only doing this because I think we're being asked explicitly, and I'm inferring that because of all the attention that's been given to floodplain management, starting with the storms of a couple of years ago, and this topic has become more, and will continue to be increasingly important. The board hasn't really grappled with this separate from, yeah, you're gonna do everything that's in all of the town ordinances, but this one keeps coming up, and so what I'm hearing is that it would help the code enforcement office job if we add a separate one. When an application is in the floodplain, and no other time, to call out, to highlight the fact that, yeah, we recognize this is in the floodplain, we're gonna give it that special attention. I agree with your
Yeah.
concern.
I'm fine, I mean, again, I just think it makes the process and the document more unwieldy with
Yeah.
all of the separate provisions, but I'm fine with it. I think, what other provisions are there in building on a floodplain? Is there a height provision? Do we want to put then another proviso that says, and it complies with any height?
It's the underlying zone height.
Yes.
But again, it's covered by that first line, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, that's his point.
Right, and
It's-
every one of these then becomes redundant because it's already been addressed in an overarching statement, right?
It's the only difference I heard was some things you want confirmed by the code officer before issuing the building permit. Others are part of the permitting process, or after the permit's been issued, that they're confirming and checking.
Well,
You're you're not gonna get a permit unless you have addressed all
Yeah.
these things already.
And more.
And
And,
more.
of course, yeah.
So that
All
was,
of this, yes, all of this and then more.
If it-
And then it's a triple check because like, where Nadia has, stating that the elevation 12.5 will be met, the town's going to require that we do an elevation certificate for an occupancy permit at the end of the build, which will state right there what the finished floor elevation is and that it meets the FEMA compliance
is,
formula.
but my other question is, bear with me, because I'm learning this, that, do you
all
want to then have a general provision, if we don't have one, that says all of this is contingent upon the town code enforcement officer approving everything to issue as part of the process to issue a building permit? Something like that, that you're,
It takes it off you folks to be the police of these things, really.
I don't think it's on us to be the police of these things.
You're inviting it though, when you start to open it up.
Cherry pick.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm inviting this is we've been asked explicitly, with, I think, the understanding that it will make the code enforcement officer's job easier if we add a condition like this. I don't understand it, but
Yeah, I mean, they're already looking for these things, this is part of the requirement for getting a building permit, so.
We could just make it a condition, we make it part of the boilerplate. Could be an
Oh.
applicant who comes in and they've had complete disregard for it, and there is no plan to deal with
So
it.
you stop it here, then,
And
or
that
you,
would be
you
at the
check it
board
here.
level, exactly,
Yeah.
because it won't meet our boilerplate.
but we're gonna put that boilerplate in there only on applications that are in the floodplain.
So you may be the first line of screening in that sense,
Yeah.
right, for
Or we
those
say,
kinds of things.
go back and redo the drawings, figure it out.
We've had some conversations initially on the board here. We've had some turnover and all that,
Yeah.
that I think it would help us to have a little more thorough boilerplate, templates and all of that, and
Yeah,
this
maybe
would be a
maybe
candidate for
Galen
it.
and Nadia could do a little, just a sort of a little seminar that would just bring you up to speed on the basics, the things you need
Sure.
to be looking for in the
Sure.
board.
Yeah.
It's a matter of inserting it into what we use as a template for findings of facts. I mean, I don't know about you, but I go find an old finding of fact and kind of do
Understood,
a cut job.
understood.
And a lot of these things are new, so.
Yeah.
So far,
Heights, steps, floods.
on all, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 recommended conditions under the section 219 floodplain management. Are you comfortable with us adding this as a condition, under the one, subordinate to the one that says we're gonna do all of the town ordinances, but in particular, because this home is in the floodplain, the code enforcement officer will approve that the application for a building permit is in compliance with section 219 of the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that will cover all 4 of these. Would that be agreeable, guys? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And we'll adopt that practice, that when we hit one, that we'll add that type of language.
It's
Make
clear
this
to
a
me.
new template.
I don't think it's gonna cause you any more work than you would have done, but
Oh, I
you
love,
know,
I
we-
love more work, so.
Do you
no-
really?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Paid by the hour.
you're weird, but,
I wish.
Okay.
I don't even wanna know how much to make an hour, it's probably not good.
all right, what else we got?
So the last 2 notes, one of them, just a reminder, I expect that the next meeting will be a public hearing, obviously the board will decide, but
Yes,
just please bring 2 sets of rolled plans, not folded, for the board to sign. So they'll need a signature box on them, and they'll need to be rolled. And those are just to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah.
that
So
wasn't.
They
in
won't,
this-
they won't take folded plans, which is why we're nitpicky about the format that they come in.
Pretty soon, they won't take hard copy of anything, that's the way it's going these days, nobody wants hard copy of anything,
Yeah.
everybody wants everything.
We're hoping to move away from that too, so, we'll see. The last one, we've been noticing some, issues with tie cards for the wastewater, for the sewer line. So we're just recommending that be added as a condition. It's another thing that, is kind of implied, but we'd like it to be specified in the conditions. It won't add any extra work to the applicant, it's something that they should be doing anyway, but, we just want it noted in the findings of fact.
Uh,
So the tie card is when you build a new house, you have to get a piece of paper basically from the sewer department that the sewer director has signed off on that says, yes, it's okay that these people tie into the sewer line.
A capacity ladder.
Yeah, and this is the fee that they'll pay, basically.
So we don't need that because in this case, we've already got an existing sewer connection and we're not adding any bedrooms, so we're not paying the additional fee to add. If you add a bedroom, like if you have 3 bedrooms and you design a 4-bedroom house, you have to go to the sewer department and pay a fee for that
Understood.
additional impact, which, yeah.
This recommendation came from the wastewater operations manager, so maybe include that in your conversation with Eric, just whether he wants some kind of documentation. This is what we heard from the sewer department, so that's why it's in here when we met about the application.
Was he talking about new construction or existing property?
About this project, we're talking specifically about it, and, Peter actually mentioned.
He's saying that this is new construction. With new construction and location, the
Okay.
applicant will be required to obtain a tie card. That's what the code enforcement office has sent to the planning board.
Okay. I think
That may not be true, is what you're saying. There may be a nuance here.
there is a nuance, yeah,
Yeah.
because yes, there certainly are fees associated with a virgin piece of land with no connection that don't exist when you have an existing connection, yeah.
So I'll check in with the code enforcement officer tomorrow, and I can send the board an email for whoever is writing up the findings of fact.
Yeah.
If
If
they
you want
believe
something
that they
in
need
there-
something in there, or if they don't.
Whatever, I
So,
mean, whatever you want me
yeah.
to do, just tell me and I'll,
So I'll
No,
check
but-
in with them,
yeah.
and check in with Peter again.
Okay, so we're gonna not put that in as a condition unless we get a note that says
Yes.
you'd like that.
So I'll check in with them again tomorrow.
Because your story made sense to me. You're just connecting to an existing.
Yeah, that's just how it goes, if you have
You don't think you need to
You don't need a tie.
obtain a tie card.
Well, I don't need a letter that says that there's capacity to support
No,
me because it already
that's not what this
exists.
is saying. It says, the applicant will be required to obtain a tie card,
Yeah.
whatever a tie card is.
I
So
don't know, I've never obtained a tie card, I've gone and asked, I've done many
I understand.
sewer visits. I've met with Eric LaBelle many times and I've never obtained a tie card, so.
I don't know what it is either, but the location of the new sewer and water line extensions. You're not asking for sewer and water line extensions.
Correct, we are not looking for a new connection in this case. That's right, like, if I'm building in Binnacle Hill, then I need a new sewer and
I'll
water
check in
connection,
with
right?
Derek and with Peter and see what they
Cool.
have to say.
All right? We can adjust accordingly. Any questions? Any further questions?
Do you
Where's
want-
Peter? No, that question is
Not my day to watch them.
gone by the board.
Oh yeah, Peter's my guy here, where is he?
What you do to him? I don't know.
He's the one guy on Zoom.
Oh, my goodness, that'd be funny. Is there a motion then? You're comfortable with where we are with
Yeah.
respect to the memo?
I think so.
I am too. I would move
Find it complete.
that the same thing we did last time, that it's complete and that we should, we reaffirm that it is complete and that the questions have been answered. And we'd like to schedule a public hearing for the next time. And we'd love it if you, yes, that is a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. And
You'd love it if I what?
you would, after talking to Mr. LaBelle, is that
Yeah, Eric LaBelle,
Eric?
Yeah.
Come and close with Nadia in terms of where we are
yeah,
with
if there's
all
something
of
that
this.
is needed from him.
Just to
I'll-
grease it for next time.
Just send me an email.
Cool, yeah.
All right, so public hearing on May 7th.
All right, now, the last time we did this, we went through and we didn't check ourselves. Are we doing the right thing here? We've crossed all the Ts and dotted the Is.
I believe so.
We're
Yeah,
all
I
good.
think so.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All set?
Thank you.
All right,
you.
thank you very much.
Let me pass this down.
Thank you. You can start by signing that one. I'm going to read the other one. We're going to go on to the, yeah, Yeah, well, the second one is, we're gonna read the findings of fact on Land and Woods.
Oh, just finding the fact, yes.
Yeah, we didn't have them at
Stick
the,
around.
we didn't have them at the ready.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
you can hang out.
So I'm gonna read the findings of fact for item 250302, Land and Woods subdivision, which the board, thank you, Eric, which the board approved last time, its final subdivision application. Kennebunkport Planning Board, findings of fact and decision, approval of Land and Woods subdivision application to create a new 6-unit subdivision off Beechwood Avenue. Following reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and land use ordinance held on 5 and 19 March and 2 April 2025, and a public hearing held on 2 April 2025, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions, and renders the following decision, subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. 1, the property is located in the free enterprise zone and has an address of Beechwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, Kennebunkport. Kennebunkport, Maine. Right, I don't need to say Kennebunkport twice. The property is identified as map 23, block 61, lot 27C on the town's GIS maps. The property is 4.79 acres in size and the site of a former quarry. 4, the applicant and owner of the property is Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust, abbreviated KHHT2, P.O. Box 333, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. 5, the applicant was represented at the planning board by its executive director, Larissa Crockett, and by Werner Gilliam of Walsh Engineering Associates, Inc., 1 Karen Drive, Suite 2A, Westbrook, Maine, 04096. 6, the owner demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a municipal quitclaim deed without covenants recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 19039, page 345, dated 1 June 2022. The applicant also provided, by reference in the application to York County Registry of Deeds, Book 19391, page 383, a Maine Superior Court judgment dated 2 February 2024, granting the applicant title in fee simple to the property. 7, in an application dated 3 March 2025, the applicant proposes a condominium subdivision comprising 6 homes in 3 duplexes. 8, each duplex will be accessed by a driveway from a proposed new road off Beechwood Avenue. 9, water will be provided by individual to each home wells. 10, separate septic systems will service each of the 3 lots. Septic system leach fields will be shared property by the owners of each duplex. Each home will have a separate septic storage tank. 11, fire suppression will be met through an in-house system tied directly to the private wells for each home. 12, homeowners will own their septic storage tank, well, and fire suppression system. 13, Maine Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife, MDIFW review found that the spotted turtle habitat is potentially present, though unconfirmed, on the property. Accordingly, in an email dated 28 February 2025, MDIFW made these 4 recommendations, with which the applicant agreed to comply as a condition of the planning board approval. 1, MDIFW recommends the applicant reduce, to the extent possible, the extent of tree clearing around the development footprint of Building 3, its associated parking, the fire truck turnaround, and the proposed septic locations. 2, MDIFW recommends that prior to commencement of site preparation/clearing, the applicant should install silt fencing around the limit of disturbance to exclude turtles from the construction site. The interior of the fenced area should be inspected for entrapped turtles prior to any clearing or heavy machine operation. MDIFW is willing to support this inspection effort with staff time. 3, following completion of construction, MDIFW recommends installing a 12-inch, 1-foot high retaining wall or comparable height wall achieved through the use of alternate materials, along the eastern edge of the proposed pavement line from Building 3 north to the fire truck turnaround. This would serve as a diversion mechanism to discourage listed turtles from crossing from on-site wetlands onto the managed footprint of the development. And 4, the applicant should identify an upland site for the disposal of yard waste greater than 250 feet distant from the on-site wetlands. Item 14, in a letter dated 26 March 2024, Kennebunkport Fire Chief John Everett provided direction regarding the proposed fire suppression system. The applicant agreed to comply with this direction as a condition of approval by the planning board. That direction, that the sprinkler system shall be designed and constructed to meet the flows, pressures, and water storage capacities in accordance with NFPA 13D, standard for the installation of sprinkler systems in 1- and 2-family dwellings and manufactured homes, is listed as a condition below. 15, during the public hearing, a concern was raised that the responsibilities for performing the stormwater system maintenance, as described in the applicant's stormwater management report, Rev. 2, March 12, 2025, Appendix D, needed to be clearly specified in the condominium declaration, bylaws, and/or rules and regulations documentation. The applicant agreed to make those responsibilities clear in a future revision of those documents as a condition of planning board approval. 16, the planning board considered and approved submission waivers requests to the following requirements of the subdivision regulations during the preliminary review of this application. Section 415, 7.2.d, 10, which is a requirement for a high-intensity soil survey. B, Section 415, 7.2.d, 13, which is a requirement for a hydrogeological assessment. C, Section 415, 7.2d, 14, which is a requirement for a tree survey. D, Section 415, 11.8a2, allowing a restricted cutting within a 50-foot forested buffer, as referenced on the plan set dated 1/15/2025. E, Section 415, 11.9, allowing a reduction of the 50-foot right-of-way to 40 foot. F, 415, 12.12J, which is a requirement for sidewalk installation. And G, Section 415, 72D, 26, which is a requirement for stormwater treatment per Chapter 500. In addition, the planning board approved the applicant's request for overhead utilities. Decision, in accordance with Articles 7, 8, and 9 of the Town of Kennebunkport Subdivision Regulations and Titled 30-A MRSA Paragraph 4404, the Planning Board grants approval of the applicant's final plan application. Conditions of approval, there's 6 of them. 1, required permits applied for and approved by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. 2, adherence to fire chief direction, as described in Section 14 above, shall be confirmed as part of the final approval before the issuance of building permits by the code enforcement officer. That specs and information for water supply shall meet NFPA 13D, standards for installation of the sprinkler system. Condition 3, implementation of the 4 recommendations made by MDIFW for protection of spotted turtle habitat, described above in Section 13 above, shall be confirmed by the code enforcement officer prior to issuing any occupancy permits for the property. Condition 4, clear specification of the parties responsible for performing all stormwater system maintenance activities described in Appendix D of the Stormwater System Management Report shall be confirmed by the code enforcement officer prior to issuing any occupancy permits for the property. 5, this approval must be recorded with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval, or it becomes null and void unless an extension is granted by the board in writing. And 6, this is the overarching one that we spoke to earlier. The applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances and subdivision regulations, and of all applicable federal and state regulations and approvals, as well as those specified in the final application, all of which are incorporated herein by reference. That's all.
It seems very incumbency.
And I'm initialing, I struck out in the first one.
Do you want us to initial that?
I would like you to initial that, yeah. And there's the signature block.
I got this one.
The initial
Oh,
on the front page.
Strike out the second Kennebunkport in that first line.
And then
I'd like to,
I'll just lay these out, I think, if that works for you guys.
With the table,
And people can,
yeah.
yep, and people can come up
the
and sign
Mylar
them.
table. I'll make a motion to, accept the, findings of fact. Do I have to do that?
Yeah,
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Very well done.
Approved and
Uh,
signed.
If there's no other business, I'd like to make a motion that we, adjourn the meeting after we sign the Mylar.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
Or,
Is this a record?
All those in favor?
no. Damn good average.
All those are not in favor? Are those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0, yes.